What's up, everybody? I am your host, a struggling artist who is forced to make a choice, a successful career or my family. And that is my co-host, a demonic presence who eats children like Skittles. And welcome to the Grindhouse Syndicate, where this week, the devil is in the details, because we are diving into one of the most unique and underrated possession films of the last decade. Byrne's The Devil's Candy from 2015. What an interesting movie this was. I had seen the movie one time before. It is one of those movies that Shudder constantly recommends to you on their main page, but I don't remember liking it as much as I did this time around, and I think a huge part of that is the difference between casually watching a movie and really paying close attention to it, along with doing, all the research and background stuff on the film.
Yeah, whenever this first got requested, actually, when I first seen the request board for the month and I seen this, I had mentioned to you, Second Sight had just announced that they were releasing this, but it wasn't going to come out until the end of May.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is 100% a movie because Second Sight, they literally, I mentioned it in the House of the Devil. Ty West said there's really, 7 or 8 people that really affect and make a movie. And one thing about Second Sight is they always get interviews with all those important people, the people who do the score, the cinematographer, the production design, stuff that a lot of other studios leave out when they're doing releases. And I think being able to watch some of that and learning the background and then watch this movie over again, man, it makes it so much better. Like you were saying, like doing that deep dive and really paying attention, like you said, the devil's in the details.
Yeah, I definitely think that stuff makes this movie better. So hopefully, this episode makes this better for somebody's next rewatch, which is kind of the main goal of this show anyway. But I agree, there was a lot of things that I didn't pick up on when I watched it the first time. And I watched it the first time, it was a casual watch. I'm just looking for a movie to kill some time or, whatever before I go to bed. And I'm not locked in paying attention to all of these little details that are going on. But when we go to do these episodes, you're locked into it and you also research the background and everything and why stuff is done a certain way. And I think that this is a movie in particular where it gets amplified by that information.
Yeah, I actually when I put this on, Brooke said we had watched this before, and because I did my first watch and then dove into the special features and then did my actual deep dive watch, and she had mentioned a couple details where she had obviously seen it before, and I think it was one of those times where I didn't even pay attention because it was a possession movie, and
Agree,
there's
yeah.
so many terrible possession movies
Yeah.
out there, especially that she puts on when she's picking a movie,
It just
and
has to look like a ghost movie or possession movie,
yeah.
yeah.
And even reading the synopsis on this, it's like, this sounds like every
A
possession
rehash,
movie,
yeah, yeah.
and then getting into it, like, it's such a unique possession movie, like, this is the type of possession movie that I like, and we don't get a lot of them. We got Late Night with the Devil, Talk to Me, like, those possession movies that are really, really unique.
Yeah, one thing this movie is also known for, in probably the thing it's most known for is the soundtrack, which if you are a fan of metal music, then I'm sure that this is like already on your radar. But one of the main things that really stuck out to me was actually the score, which I think gets overshadowed by this amazing soundtrack. Very good score. It's one of the few scores that's like kind of like a heavy metal, which we will dive in when we go to do production stuff. We'll dive in a little more to the score, but I just found the score to be a lot more unique than a lot of movies. because it's a lot of distorted guitar and stuff like that, and I think that it gets overshadowed.
Yeah, I believe the composer was Michael Yuzurski,
Yes,
and I think he had worked with Sean Byrne before. Sean Byrne,
they went
I
to school together.
yeah, and he went to school with the editor as well. Like, this is very similar to when we covered The House of the Devil, so Ty West, and I learned really that Ty West kept the same group of like 7 people who really affect a movie. He really kept those people in place through his first couple movies, and some of those people literally still do all of his movies. His Ty West, cinematographer, has worked with him on every movie he's ever done. And I think that really, really, when you work together and you're friends with somebody and you really know their taste and the vision that they're trying to have, it really shows through on the final product.
So, before we jump into this thing, we just want to give you guys a heads up. We will be taking next week off. We got some stuff we've kind of been pushing off that we need to get to. We got some behind the scenes stuff that we're trying to hammer out. And honestly, 5 deep dives later, I'm wore out. I'm gonna get me a little break. But we will be back in your ear holes on the 22nd of June. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And with that being said, are you ready to dive into the devil's candy?
I am.
All right, let's do it.
Hello, boys and ghouls. If you want to stay up to date on what's going on with the show, talk about or submit your movie requests, or just say die, then I got good news for you. You can always find us at one of our social media accounts or our official website at grindhousehorrorpod.com, Facecrook at the Grindhouse Syndicate Horror Podcast, Instascam at grindhousesyndicate.horror.pod, and many gore, which you can always find links for in the show notes as always. And you know what I always say, the morgue, the merrier. So please subscribe or follow for alerts on new episodes. Now, back to the show, kiddies. Frights, camera, action.
And if you really love us and you don't want us to get possessed and start painting dead kids, give us a review. The Devil's Candy is a 2015 American horror film written and directed by Sean Byrne. It stars Ethan Embry, Sherry Appleby, and Pruitt Taylor Vince. It was produced by Hanway Films and Snoot Entertainment, was released on September 13th of 2015, had a budget of around $2 million, and a box office of $780,000 with a limited theatrical and streaming release. So, we talked a little bit about horror writer and director Sean Byrne recently for our The Loved Ones episode. And the question is, how did we go from a homicidal daddy-daughter duo to a possession film about the devil? Well, I am going to tell you. So despite The Loved Ones being such a critically celebrated debut, it ended up taking 6 long years to get The Devil's Candy off the ground. And the reason why is because apparently getting a second film financed in the horror space is genuinely difficult even when your first one was a massive critical hit. And the key word there is critical, not financial hit. And a couple really big changes happened in that 6 years that would end up drastically shaping the movie that we are going to talk about today. According to Byrne himself, the original inspiration for the film was his own fear of fatherhood. His wife had become pregnant with twins around that time, and he was developing this script, and he quickly became terrified with the idea of bringing children into the world because the idea of having children made the world instantly feel like a much more dangerous place. So essentially, the original screenplay was Sean processing his anxiety about becoming a parent, and the way that he would deal with this was by making a movie about a father fighting the literal devil to protect his daughter.
Kind of with him having kids on the way, and then, when he did become a father, the battle between your art and what he does for making movies like an artist, and then being a father and the fear of, also not being there as much as a father as you want because you're pursuing this career. And we see that a lot throughout the movie.
Yeah.
He said that the script changed so many times.
So, the second big important thing that happened was his sister bought an older house for a really good deal. But not long after the purchase, the seller began to regret the decision, prompting him to start harassing his sister to sell it back to him. I guess this turned into a really big deal, which apparently resulted in some kind of home invasion, which Sean then used to shape his story, which is how we ended up with the whole Ray killing his parents and fleeing the house thing, and then the family buys the house, and then Ray comes back. And a really interesting note about this particular bit of info is during this version of the screenplay, there was absolutely no paranormal or religious aspects to the story. It was simply this character, Jesse, protecting his family from this crazy dude who wanted this house back. And Jesse also wasn't an artist. He was originally a telemarketer who hated his life but loved his family in heavy metal.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy how the original script of this for years had no good versus evil, no heaven and hell. It was
Not
purely
a possession movie.
yeah, it was purely a horror movie, but it was a home invasion movie, essentially.
Sounds
He was like
kinda similar to the first Purge.
yeah, yeah, definitely very similar to that. It was a home invasion horror movie, and then his wife got pregnant. He started incorporating the father and daughter aspect of it back and forth, and then I believe one of the producers, it was a small note that was put in there, but it slowly turned into a a good versus evil.
So, once he has the story written, he starts looking for financing, but he pretty quickly hits a dead end because, according to him, Australia has very little interest in horror films, which was kind of a surprise to
Yeah.
me because they're coming out with some good ones.
Yeah, that was one thing I was gonna bring up in the episode, and we've talked about, all the bangers coming
Yeah.
out of Australia and how their movie industry works a lot different than it does here in the US, and I was very, very surprised to hear him say, even still now, with the good movies that have come out, there is very, very little interest in horror, financial-wise, box office-wise, in Australia.
Yeah,
Like, it is a very cult, like,
very niche thing
yeah,
there. Yeah.
yeah,
He was saying that their big focus is more on television
yeah,
and like kind of
and
drama
dramas.
series.
Yeah,
Yeah. So this led to nobody wanting to fund the project in Australia, and this left Sean with a hard choice to make. Ditch the idea and move on to something else, or hop on a plane and head to Hollywood where he would have a better shot at getting the movie made. And obviously, he chose the plane ride. So, when in Hollywood trying to get your movie made, things typically go like this. You shop the story around to all the studios, and once everyone says no, you rework the story and do it all over again. Talking to the same studios, taking notes, making changes, and getting no after no, which is what Sean did here. He added things, changed things, and completely revamped the story over and over again in order to try and get this thing picked up, which is how we end up with the religious stuff and possession stuff. And that makes sense too, because like this is probably 2014 and you were really starting to see like the kind of generic possession movies start
yeah.
rolling out. And I could definitely see, some studio executive or something saying, this is what's selling in horror right now. And then he's like, how can I incorporate this into like this home invasion movie that I've been writing?
Yeah, and it was a note, essentially, one of those production companies made a note that to add that, which, like you said, completely makes sense, and for him to go back and rework the story completely And one thing that the editor who went to film school with him and they're very close friends, Andy Canny, was he said that Sean is like a fucking encyclopedia of horror history and horror movies. He is a massive horror fan, and for him to go incorporate possession into a movie, it makes sense him being such a fan of the genre and the history of it to be able to incorporate the possession side of it, but do it different and not do it the same as, every other fucking possession movie that was coming out around that time and still to this day.
Well, I know that he really hates when movies are predictable.
Yeah.
So every time he does a movie, he tries to be different. He tries to surprise the audience, which is fantastic.
You know who else does that? Ty West.
Well, yeah,
That's
we
a
did.
big
We
thing
did.
with Ty West.
We talked about
And
that. Yep.
he's also one who can do these movies in certain genres and do them completely unique and different than other horror movies. And I think that's the charm of these indie horror movies. And it's honestly, it's sad that there's so many of these amazing movies out there that the average fan just
Doesn't
will
know
never
about, yeah.
know.
So then one day he has a meeting with Jess and Keith Calder of Snoot Entertainment, who like the idea, and they decide to greenlight the film, giving Sean $2 million for the project. This meeting is also how we end up with the Jesse being a struggling artist thing. This was kind of the last change in the story. And now that the ball is rolling, it's decided that they will get 5 weeks to prepare and 5 weeks to shoot, which will take place on location around Austin, Texas. Ethan Embry, who recently worked on another project Byrne was affiliated with, was known to really enjoy heavy metal music and was looking for a more dramatic role, which is what led to Byrne reaching out to him, where he pretty quickly agreed to do the film. When it comes to who would play Embry's on-screen daughter, many both recognizable and unrecognizable teenage girls auditioned, but it was unknown 12-year-old actress Kira Glasgow who stuck out the most. And when she did a second audition with Embry, she was without a doubt the right choice. Apparently, her and Embry immediately had amazing father-daughter chemistry, which 100% shows up on screen, and I think that's a big, big part of the movie.
Yeah, their chemistry is kind
Fantastic.
of makes or breaks this movie.
Yeah.
If they don't have good chemistry, this movie doesn't work, and they do. And for her being an unknown actress, especially at the age she was, I mean, she killed it. He being a big fan of heavy metal music himself, literally, sent her a bunch of entry level, metal music. 'Cause
Oh, that's
she
cool.
she knew nothing about metal music.
I didn't know
He
that.
said she was super into the Frozen soundtrack at the time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, that goes to show you her age,
Wow. I think she was
and
12.
yeah. And so he sent her he said he put together some of the more, Radio
Friendly, yeah.
Metallica and then some Rage Against the Machine and stuff, and 2 weeks later when they got on set to shoot, she's like, "I can't listen to that. I hate it." And he's like, I think it's a testament to her acting
Wow.
for her to be able to pull it off because you would never know
No,
that
yeah.
she completely not only knows nothing about that music, but can't stand it.
I really thought you were gonna tell me oh, she loved it. She was a fan because of how she is in the movie. Yeah, that's that's shocking.
Yeah, it was his own words. It's like, I think it's a testament to her acting that she literally pulls it off in a way that you would never know.
Now, when it comes to the role of Ray Smile, Byron only had one guy in mind, longtime actor Pruitt Taylor Vince, who has been in tons of big movies and TV shows like Mississippi Burning, Natural Born Killers, The Cell, The Walking Dead, Stranger Things, so on. Look him up. Dude has a fantastic career. But anyway, Byron reaches out to him and sends him the script, but Vince turns it down, explaining that he felt like he was starting to get typecast as a bad guy and decided that he needed to take a break from that for a few years. But Byron wasn't giving up that easy because he then wrote the veteran actor a heartfelt letter explaining the character and that he needed someone who could portray the scared little boy trapped inside of a possessed man's body on screen. And he didn't really see Ray as the villain, but as another one of the victims being manipulated by the devil, which was enough to change Vince's mind as he then joined the project. It's very interesting if you look at it as he's not the villain. He's really just another victim. It's hard to see that without that being pointed out, but that is a very good point.
Yeah, I'll point some things out in the plot, when we get to that point. But yeah, he very much watching this movie, you would think like, yeah, he fooled him to get him to sign up for this role because this guy is very much a villain.
Yeah.
He is fucking horrifying.
Yeah.
But he plays this role so good. I think the chemistry between Jesse and Zoe is extremely important, but the other aspect that I think makes or breaks this movie is Ray and his ability to play this character, and he absolutely knocks it out of the park. I think you said it a really good way. A scared boy trapped in a possessed man's body. That is a very hard role to play,
Well,
and he does so good at portraying that.
it's almost like he has amazing chemistry with this demon, this Satan that isn't real. It's not, he's not really possessed, but he plays this role so well. It's almost like there's kind of like the dad and daughter are having good chemistry. It's almost like he has very good chemistry with this thing that's possessing him, but there's nobody actually there.
Yeah, and he's playing two characters. He's playing a very evil, fucked up man, but he is very childlike and scared.
Yeah.
And to play both of those at the same time, it takes a very, very talented actor, and he fucking killed the role of Ray.
So, once everything was in order, the production set up shop in Travis County, located on the outskirts of Austin, Texas, in order to utilize authentic rural landscapes in local towns to establish the eerie atmosphere Byrne was wanting. Some urban scenes were filmed in Austin as well as Hutto, Texas, and Taylor, Texas, which was a historic railroad town and known to be very film production friendly. I believe it's actually listed on the Texas Historic Film Registry or something like that, but a lot of stuff had been filmed there. The primary filming location was, of course, the house we see in the movie, which was not a set, but actually a private residence located in Travis County. By the way, I thought this was interesting. They actually changed the name of the movie during filming to Babylon in order to fit in and not stir up any trouble with the very conservative Christian locals.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, the production designer, which is another one, Second Sight, killed it by going out and getting because he had great information. But Thomas Hammock, he is the one who did the location and a lot of the stuff that's extremely important. We'll go over more in the plot, but he actually said there was a house prior that they had already picked out, and Transformers 4, I think, was being filmed there, and it got damaged by fire during filming. And at the last minute, they had to look for this new place to shoot the movie, and it was a fucking he said it was all hands on deck. Like people who had nothing to do with scouting was out there looking for a good place to film, and they found this perfect spot. But he did say it was located right in between the interstate and then a bunch of power lines. And that's why all the faraway shots of the house are taken from the same angle because they couldn't pan right or left.
Yeah, it's also really difficult to shoot inside of a real house. Very hard.
Yeah, they actually did for some of the scenes. They did some interior bedroom shots. They actually built the sets, but they were working in a elementary school that wasn't open yet. They were able to get access to that and used the gym to build their indoor sets for the certain scenes that they had to have. And they went in and replicated the actual house perfectly.
So, in order to play the role of Jesse, Ethan Embry had to run 5 miles every day leading up to filming. burning 3,000 calories while only consuming 2,000 a day, losing roughly a pound every 3 days over the course of 3 months to get the gaunt, intense look the role required. So once filming was completed, the film headed into post-production, and with the Toronto International Film Festival coming up, there was a big problem. The film still needed a soundtrack and score. And not just any soundtrack and score, it needed to be geared towards heavy metal. This led Byrne doing two things. One, he reached out to one of the most successful metal bands in history, Metallica, who he actually got to watch the film in a private theater, and they loved it and offered some of their hit songs at a super discounted rate. And according to Byrne, once Metallica got on board, everyone else came easy. And two, he reached out to fellow Australian film school grad Michael Yuzurski, who agreed to work day and night for days on an electric guitar-based score, which he finished right before the film debuted at TIFF. Score is awesome, as well as the soundtrack. I think I've seen a lot of, if you type in The Devil's Candy, a lot of articles are about the soundtrack, which of course has PJ Harvey, Ghost, Slayer, Machine Head, Metallica, but the score is fucking awesome too.
Yeah, so apparently Kirk Hammett was a big fan of the Loved Ones.
Oh,
So
yeah,
he
yeah.
was already kind of familiar with Sean's work,
Oh.
and they got the private screening, like you said, and not only did they offer good prices, but they also sent the bobbleheads and a bunch of merch, the poster for the room. They were apparently a very big help. When I seen this before I did the deep dive into the information, I told Brooke, I'm like, they literally probably used half of their budget to get For Whom the Bell Tolls. So I wasn't surprised when I found out that they actually got it at a really good discounted price, because
Yeah.
it's rare that you see an independent movie, because I think Metallica's known for having
Very
the
expensive.
second or third highest. I think AC/DC is the most expensive. I think it's Back in Black or something. It's known as the, on average, most expensive song, but Metallica's up there. And yeah, it's very rare that you get Metallica in an independent movie.
Yeah, that's awesome. Really cool of them.
Yeah, I think that leads back to Kirk Hammett being a fan of the Loved Ones. Him having seen it before, I think, probably helped a lot.
Yeah, definitely. So the film premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival on September 13th of 2015, which was exactly 6 years since his film The Loved Ones premiered at the same film festival. The film was well received and was given mostly positive reviews by critics, especially for its score and soundtrack. Fun fact, Roger Ebert actually gave the movie 3.5 stars out of 4.
Damn.
He loved it. I was not expecting that. I didn't even go look for that. I was looking at just general reviews, and he was the second one up there from his actual website.
When did he die?
Somebody recently told us. I think he died 2017 or something.
Did giving this a good review kill him?
Probably contributed to his death. So unfortunately, it did not get its U.S. theatrical release until March 17th of 2017, nearly 2 years later, when it was finally picked up and distributed by IFC Midnight, eventually making its way to streaming, where it would finally find its footing. Despite being consistently available on streaming, the film did get a DVD Blu-ray release from IFC Midnight and Scream Factory on September 26th of 2017. But almost 9 years later, on May 25th of 2026, Second Sight Films would drop a limited edition 4K Blu-ray box set featuring a new audio commentary with the director, new cast and crew interviews, behind-the-scenes VFX footage, and Byrne's short film, Advantage Satan, which is, of course, considered the definitive version of this film and is the version that we use to write this episode. The good box set.
Yeah, definitely. It's one that I would suggest going out and getting. Yeah, I did see actually today, because Second Sight's limited editions, once they sell out, they pretty much double in price. Some of them, like The Witch, which was very limited, are extremely expensive on the secondary market. I just bought the Ugly Stepsister. That's already almost double the price, but the actual 4K alone is already sold out
Wow.
on Second Sight. So the limited edition, I assume, is probably gonna sell out pretty soon.
All right, so ratings. Rotten Tom, 93%. Wow. Uh,
Holy shit.
IMDb, 6.3 out of 10. Letterboxd, a no surprise, 3.2 out of 5. And the Google average audience rating is 4 out of 5 stars.
Damn.
Pretty good.
Yeah, this got Rotten Tom and Roger Ebert together.
Yeah. And the Google average audience, whoever they are. If you would like to watch this movie, you can currently find it streaming on AMC Plus, Shudder, for rent on Apple TV, Google Play, Fandango at home for $3.99. It is also available on Filio if you have a monthly subscription to that, which, by the way, they have a 7-day free trial. But after the trial, it's $25 a month. I was like, good God, that's like Netflix prices, man. I've never even heard of Filio.
I was about to say, what is Filio?
It's a streaming site. I
Is
thought it
it
was going to be
new?
like a Tubi, and then I was like, $25 a month. What the fuck? But yeah, or just get Shudder.
Or
Watch it there.
just buy it while
Yeah,
you
I can
can.
buy it while you can.
Because, I mean, it was would you have 9 years in between
Yeah.
Scream Factory and IFC releasing this, which
Yeah.
is why I think so many people went out to grab it because it is, not readily available, so
Well,
get it while you can.
Well, it's an indie movie too, so it doesn't get distributed as easily.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big part of, only Scream Factory did it, and then only Second Sight did it. It obviously isn't getting a ton of releases like these bigger horror movies. Yeah, I mean, it could be another 10 years before it ever is released again. We don't know. All right, ready to dive into the plot?
I am.
All right, so we start out late at night at a secluded farmhouse located on the outskirts of Austin, Texas, where we immediately see a middle-aged man awoken by a demonic voice. And this man is one of our main characters, and his name is Ray Smile. And after waking up to the sounds of this scary voice, he immediately gets out of bed, turns on his guitar amp, cranks the volume, and blasts a chord from his Flying V electric guitar while staring directly at a crucifix hanging on his wall. After a few minutes of this, his elderly mother then comes running into the room, yelling for him to turn it off. But the crunchy tunes are so loud that Ray can't hear her, prompting her to pull the cord, which immediately silences the guitar and startles Ray. Now, very concerned, his mother asks him what is he doing, and Ray then stumbles to tell her that if he plays it loud, he can block out the voice. And this immediately freaks her out as she quickly tells him to pack his things because she is calling his dad to take him back to the mental hospital. Now, we don't know why she's so freaked out when he mentions this, but we're going to find out later. So, now that the instrument has been silenced, Ray can hear the demonic voice very clearly, which then prompts him to attack his mother with the Flying V guitar, causing her to fall down the stairs, which ends up killing her. And as this happens, we cut back to Ray's bedroom, where we suddenly see the top of the crucifix unhinged from the nail, where it then swings upside down, instantly becoming the symbol of Satan. Ray's father then arrives, immediately spotting the dead woman on the floor, and to make the situation even stranger, he can hear his son repeatedly playing the same chord super loud upstairs in his room. But before we see what happens next, we get the title card, The Devil's Candy.
And that distortion on that fucking guitar is super haunting. I thought the composer did a fantastic job going in and tuning that thing. But we also get a fucking awesome, like, the shot of his mom falling down the steps, and then we get that slow motion shot looking back up at him is so fucking creepy.
Well, I mean, honestly, my favorite thing about the movie is the cinematography. It's
Yeah.
on point, man. There's so many good shots, which I get into that more later, but
The color palette
yeah,
too,
man.
man. They were able to take such a dark movie and make the reds and the colors pop so much. Normally, they'll go in and saturate the colors a lot on a darker
Yeah,
background
so
like
they're all
this.
in the same
Yeah.
spectrum together. But yeah, you're right. There's a lot of dark tones kind of in the background and everywhere, and they kind of brighten a lot of the colors. It looks great. The movie
Yeah.
looks phenomenal. Uh,
Yeah, it looks good, it's not oversaturated, it's not undersaturated. I think the colors on the black fucking pop perfectly.
so after that, we then meet the rest of our main characters, the Hellmans, which consist of husband and father Jesse, who loves metal music, art, but most importantly, his family. Then we have his wife Astrid, who does not enjoy Jesse's taste in loud, distorted guitars and black clothing, settling instead for a more put together, normal look. And finally, we have their teenage daughter Zoe, who adamantly joins her dad when it comes to all things macabre and spooky, as well as rock bands and black t shirts. And one thing that's obvious from the very beginning, despite how these three look from the outside, they are indeed very normal and they deeply care for each other, with Jesse and Zoe having a particularly close bond. One thing I love about this movie is it does a really good job showing that, just because people listen to heavy metal and wear black clothes and, like scary shit, it doesn't mean they're bad or they're weird or their family dynamic is any different. We have primarily lived in the Bible Belt and have dealt with this our whole entire life. It honestly fucking sucks that people are that judgmental and they kind of jump to that idea that you're like a devil worshiper or something. But I love how this movie, it shows that a kind of alternative or different family is still a family that is normal and love each other.
Yeah, this movie spoke volumes to me actually on a personal level for what you were just saying. As somebody who's tattooed doesn't look conventional in the Bible Belt, very into horror movies. We have horror movie stuff all over our house, really nice framed horror posters and I am a father of 2 daughters that I'm very, very close to. They're very much daddy's girls, and it like you were saying, it really shows that just because you live an alternative lifestyle or you're into different stuff or religion isn't at the core of your personality, doesn't mean you can't be an amazing parent.
Yeah, those people, despite whatever their differences in like, a lot of the family dynamic and the love is all the same.
Eh
Because at the core, that's just kind of something that humans do. Just because you like, black t-shirts and scary stuff and, alternative music, it doesn't mean you're out there summoning the devil. It doesn't mean that. Doesn't mean that you don't like your kids.
Yeah,
It doesn't mean that at all.
and that's one thing that I love about being a parent is you get to raise your kids however you want, and seeing how his daughter really looks up to him, and you can tell the mom's not as into the alternative stuff, but his daughter really clings to him, and that is very much the relationship I feel like that I have with my daughters, and it's really showcased here, and I love that.
So, when we first meet this family, we learn that Jesse is a struggling artist, and because he has had such a hard time selling his art, he has had to resort to painting lame ass shit for local businesses in order to support his family. But they have recently had a stroke of luck because a sizable home located outside of town has just become available and is in their price range. And as they drive up to it, it is revealed to be Ray's former home, which became available after the death of his mother and his father, which the police labeled kind of an unfortunate accident, which is, of course, the reason for this big discount. Now, this house is almost perfect for the Hellmans, with double the space, the reasonable price, and a big metal building off to the side, which Jesse plans to use as his studio. The only issues are Zoe's disdain for the teddy bears painted on the wall of her new room and the concern about the two people who recently died. But after the realtor explains that the former owner was an old woman who fell down the stairs, which led to her husband committing suicide from heartbreak, along with Jesse offering to buy Zoe more posters to cover up the teddy bears, Everybody's happy, and the deal's done. So after that, we then get a move-in montage where we see the family box up all their shit, take it over to the new place and unpack, and it appears, despite the big change and financial stress, everybody seems to be really happy. We then cut to later that night where we see Ray pay for a hotel room where he ends up playing his guitar super loud to drown out the voice. Now, I do want to give a quick description of Ray before we go any further. I don't want to say too much because later on, his past is going to become a major part of the story. But Ray is a very large man, probably in his 40s, but he kind of has the mind of a child, which is partially because when he was a kid, something bad happened that led to him spending the next 20 something years locked up in a mental hospital for schizophrenia. At the beginning of the movie, where he's living with his mother, he had just been released, which is why she freaks out and says that he's going back to the hospital, which will make a lot more sense later. So, needless to say, Ray is a bit off and definitely has that, child mind stuck in adult body thing going on.
Did they ever specifically say schizophrenia in the movie? Because I think it's very obvious that he suffers from schizophrenia with the voices that he hears.
They don't say it in the movie. I got it from the interview with Sean, but
Okay.
yeah, it doesn't specifically specify schizophrenia.
Yeah, it's very clear. I asked that because that's something that I had obviously thought about very early on is when he's hearing these voices. That's a clear sign of schizophrenia. It not saying it's always, but more than likely he probably has schizophrenia. But I was asking because I was wondering if they mentioned anything else because he's obviously has other issues on top of that. 'Cause he's very much childlike.
Yeah.
He never he has a form of mental handicap where his brain never progressed past a certain age.
So Ray is jamming in this hotel room, which definitely pisses some people off, leading to them to call the police. And as soon as the cop knocks on the door, Ray freezes in fear, worried the officer's going to take him away. But the cop pretty quickly recognizes that Ray isn't mentally right, as Ray acts more like a kid in trouble than like a drunk asshole playing loud music. This leads to the cop to go easy on him, telling him to just keep it down, with Ray agreeing. So the next day, Jessie drops Zoe off at her new school, which she's definitely not happy about. But when he arrives back at the house, he suddenly hears the demonic voice, which kind of freaks him out. And after a few minutes of trying to figure out where it's coming from, he ends up in Zoe's bedroom, pinpointing the voice to the far wall on the other side. And as he removes her ghost poster, the band, not paranormal, he finds the old dirty spot where Ray's crucifix used to hang, which leads to the voice to get louder in his head. So he is now hearing the exact same creepy ass voice we've seen Ray hearing so far.
Yeah, if I seen the cross and this noise was coming from this, and I knew that it wasn't there when we moved in, like somebody would have noticed that when they were hanging posters up, that would freak me out.
Paint over that.
I also want to say like all the band posters, man. Sean, when he made this movie, he very much is also a big heavy metal fan, and he literally insisted on all of the posters. And if you watch this movie, this room is covered.
Yeah.
From literally floor to ceiling, every wall, it's covered in band posters. And he insisted on all of them being legitimate band posters. And he had a list that he sent some of the crew out with of all these different, like Sub Pop was one of the labels.
Wow, yeah.
And all these different independent labels and stuff and bands and who to reach out to if you can't get the license for this band. And it was really cool hearing that he insisted on all of those bands being legit bands. Considering this is an independent movie, they don't have endless funds to be able to make that happen. I thought was really cool.
Yeah. He pours a lot into this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So once he makes this connection, it leads Jesse to his art studio where he suddenly gets a flash of that night where Ray killed his parents and the cross that flipped upside down. And this does something weird to him. It kind of sparks a need to work on a painting. And he ends up like obsessively working on this thing for hours to the point where he totally loses track of time, not really snapping out of it until Astrid gets home from work and makes her way to the studio where it is revealed that he painted his vision of the upside down cross. And judging by his reaction, he's kind of confused why or how he did this painting.
Yeah, so the production designer, the first thing he did when he got on this movie was like, we got to have real paintings. Like, that's one thing. Every time there's paintings in a movie, they look super generic. So they thought, like, dark arts, who's the most famous? And they actually reached out to H.R. Geiger's estate and got a list of the proteges that worked underneath him. And that's how they got a hold of artist Steven Kastner, who does all the art for this movie. And they do some really cool stuff. I'll explain later how they actually work the art into the movie. But with this upside down cross, this was an original painting that Kastner had painted that he sent them. Like, this wasn't done for the movie. This was an original painting, and they get it on a Friday to be shot on a Monday. And they're like, okay, it was cutting it close, but we got it. And the forklift driver that was unloading it off
Oh,
the
God.
shipment literally poked a hole straight through the middle of this original painting. And they had to go to a company that restores classical art, and they literally had to reweave the canvas
Jeez.
and completely patch this painting
That's
for the scene,
awful.
because it wasn't like he did it for the movie. Like, some of the other paintings that he actually painted for the movie, they took pictures as he was painting it and
Yeah.
then printed it onto canvas and then put a varnish over it for the brush strokes and able to put the strokes where they needed to be for the close-up shots. But this was a original painting. There was no replicating this.
Yeah, you can actually, if you look in the book that's in that box set, it has, like, he literally has stages of this giant mural that comes into the movie later.
Yeah, that's how they did for the main painting. They literally would take high-res shots of this thing as he was progressing, and then depending on what part of the movie they were in, they would print that on the canvas. They would actually paint in the highlights to give it the acrylic look, and then they would varnish it so they could put brush strokes in where they needed to so the light could catch it for the cinematography. Really cool. I thought all that stuff was, like, really, really cool, and it adds something special to the movie because the art's awesome.
Yeah, it is. It is very impressive, but also it's one of those things where it's cool to look at, but it's creepy to look
Yeah.
at. So this quickly gets interrupted by someone at the door where we see Zoe run to answer it. And as she opens it, there stands a weirdly happy Ray who just stares at Zoe like she is like a gift from God. And right when the young girl starts to get that weird feeling that something isn't right, Ray notices this stick on flying V tattoo, prompting him to tell her that he has a guitar just like that, which of course gets Zoe talking about how bad she wants one like her favorite guitar player. And right as this conversation gets going, Astrid and Jesse come walking around the corner where they discover the man standing in the doorway. And needless to say, Jesse isn't too pleased about this, even after finding out that this was the son of the former owners, who's obviously suffering from some kind of mental health situation, which quickly leads to Jesse slamming the door in Ray's face and threatening to call the police, which causes a worried and confused Ray to scurry off into the darkness. And as Jesse watches out the window like a guard dog, his wife and daughter instantly jump on him for being a bit of an asshole to this sad and confused man, leaving Jesse confused about the whole situation. And to make matters worse, later that night we see a very stressed out Jesse sitting at the kitchen table reading a power and water bill shutoff notice where he begins to ponder if he can make any money off of these satanic looking paintings that seem to be coming out of nowhere in his body and mind.
Yeah, I was surprised at Astrid and Zoe's reaction to him being like, as a father, I would have been shitting too, and I think what really would have set me off, and, you said it best, he was looking at this girl like she was a gift from God. Like, the look that he gives her is the most creepy, unsettling, like, pedophilic, if that's even a word, look. It was like it makes your skin crawl the way he was looking at this little girl. I woulda shit a brick, and I think it makes it even worse that this was his former house. Now you gotta worry about how many times is this guy gonna come back?
Well, I think the difference is, it depends on how quick you pick up that he's kind of mentally challenged. Because if you pick up on the fact that he's, has like a child mind, it's understandable why he would wander back to this house where he's looking for his parents.
Yeah,
I
but
don't I don't know how much of that part though that Jesse caught. He kind of comes around the corner and immediately, goes up to this guy.
well, yeah, you come around the corner and a guy is literally talking about giving gifts to your daughter. Your very young daughter who this is nighttime, by the way. This isn't even during the day. Some man shows up at your house and is talking to your like 12-year-old daughter about giving her gifts or talking about this guitar. It was just super creepy. Like, I don't think I would have had the time to even flesh that out. Like, I would have been like, "What the fuck are you doing at my house at this time of night? And why are you sitting and having a fucking conversation with a 12-year-old girl?"
So, just in case you have not caught on yet, this is slowly starting to turn into one of those things where the devil gives you some kind of artistic gift that will make you rich and famous, but you, of course, have to give up something. And what we are starting to see here is Jesse needs the money and he's starting to ponder maybe he should just say, fuck doing this bank butterfly mural and just work on these extremely dark and disturbing paintings that are kind of coming out of nowhere. So it's kind of the beginning of um it's very similar to like the story where the guy meets the devil at the crossroads and the devil teaches him how to play guitar
Well,
and
it's a really cool play on the selling your soul
yeah.
to the devil.
Mhm. So, to make matters even worse, the next morning when Jesse goes to take Zoe to school, right outside the front door sits Ray's perfect condition Flying V guitar and Marshall amp, which is obviously a gift for Zoe. But a stunned Jesse immediately stomps out her excitement when he informs her that she cannot keep the guitar, which obviously doesn't go over well. He then explains that he is getting her a guitar and amp for her birthday, but she is definitely old enough to be aware of the family's financial struggles and basically tells him, yeah, but you wouldn't be able to afford a Flying V and Marshall amp, which is like a knife into Jesse's heart. This is a smart move by the devil because not only is he creating a rift between Jesse and Zoe, but he's also pushing Jesse further into the idea of letting this evil take over and paint these paintings in order to sell them for good money, where he would then be able to do things like pay the bills and buy his daughter fucking cool shit. So very, very smart move.
Yeah, it definitely a knife in the heart too as a parent. Like, to hear your child say that would be
Definitely, yeah.
so super hurtful.
Yeah. So this little push from Satan totally works because as soon as he drops off Zoe, he speeds over to this very high-end art gallery named Belial, which is owned by a man named Leonard who has already rejected Jesse's artwork in the past. Jesse then explains to the receptionist that he has a new painting that he doesn't remember doing and felt that it just flowed through him from somewhere else, which convinces her to show it to her boss. So this place is named Belial, which is definitely on purpose. This is the name of a demon from the Hebrew Bible, also found in the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Secret Book of John. And its primary translation is worthlessness and wickedness, which later became personified as the devil himself.
Yeah, this is very historic demonic nature and Christian roots, even before the New Testament, made it clear who Belial was. In the Old Testament, it was, or before the New Testament made it clear that Lucifer was the leader of the fallen angels. It was actually said that Belial
Yeah.
was the leader of the fallen angels. This is a very powerful demon, said to be the demon of like seduction and using people to carry out these evil acts. I was curious if you were gonna catch the name. I love that they make the name of the art gallery so like, it's on the side, you barely see it, you gotta really be paying attention to catch it, and it's just one of those small details that is not spoon-fed to you, but if you catch it and you know what Belial is, it makes this all the more special.
Yeah, I honestly think there's a lot more story here with this.
Yeah,
Especially
yeah.
we see some stuff later on,
Yeah, I'll
and
talk about my thoughts on that as
yeah,
well.
yeah, I kind of that's one of the things towards the end of this episode, but yeah, this is a very interesting thing. So next, we actually get a pretty cool scene here where we kind of jump back and forth between both Ray and Jesse, who are both about to be tempted by Satan, with Jesse sitting nervously in his studio staring at his canvas, and Ray sitting in his car on the side of the road, where he suddenly hears the demonic voice leading him to spot a child riding a bike. And as we are about to see, both men quickly give in, with Ray bashing the child in the back of the head with a rock and kidnapping him, and Jesse intensely painting the dead kid's face over his butterfly bank mural. Once he is done, he kind of snaps out of his trance, totally confused by what the image even means or why he painted it, leaving him kind of freaked out, which gets even worse when he steps outside only to realize the whole day has gone by and he totally forgot to pick up Zoe from school, which leads to an even more fractured relationship between him and his daughter. And needless to say, Zoe is pissed when he finally shows up, and after trying to explain he lost track of time, she convinces him to let her keep the guitar and amp. After that, we then get a quick shot of Ray getting the kid out of the trunk of his car and attempting to carry him into the hotel room while the kid is kicking and screaming, which after a bit of struggling, he is able to do. So that was not a real kid under the blanket. It was actually this animatronic. And while trying to film this scene, it actually kept malfunctioning because of an issue with the remote control. And actor Pruitt Taylor Vince kind of got a little frustrated because he would put a ton of effort into his acting here and it would be fucked up by this robot, which would cause him to have to do it over and over again.
I was very surprised they didn't just use a real kid.
Yeah, thought about that.
It seems like it'd be a one take and over thing. They built the whole animatronic to not have a kid just get on this guy's shoulder.
I wonder if it was just something they like, the guys already had from another project or something. It was like, instead of hiring a kid, let's just do this. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there was some rules in
Yeah, I
the
don't know.
film industry that they were shooting this at a certain time and they couldn't have a kid in the scene because it was past a certain workout. I found that extremely weird. But yeah, forgetting to pick your daughter up on her second day of school, huge malfunction. But this is very important because this is like the only thing that could happen that would allow him to let her keep this guitar.
Yeah.
Like he fucked up so bad. And also the scene of Ray with the rock about to bash this kid's head. I thought he was going for the dog at first. I'm not going to lie. Every time there's a dog in a horror movie, I'm like, oh no, here we go. And then they make you think it's gonna be the older kid. He's
I thought it
luring
was
it
gonna be the older kid.
into the woods,
Mhm.
and then finally you see this younger kid on the swing, much, much younger, and it's just like, I love how they trick you, like, 3
Yeah.
different times, and then it's so unnerving, this slow motion shot of him with this rock, just about to bash this kid's head in. Like,
And
it's very primal.
yeah, and
Like
Ray's huge.
yeah.
Like, he's a fucking big guy, and getting blasted with just a rock by him, yeah, especially
Well,
like a kid's skull.
I think, like bashing somebody's head in with a rock too is so primal. That
It's
is
like
like the most primal way to kill somebody.
it's
I'm
like the
pretty
first murder.
yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yep.
But yeah, it's something very much like a demon would do, like a very primal before we have weapons and guns, they pick up a rock, an
Yeah.
assault rock.
I mean, that was probably the first weapon in human history was a
Yes,
fucking rock.
it's fucking assault rocks, murdering everybody.
So after he gets him inside, things get very dark as we then see Ray, now wearing a black garbage bag over his clothes, watching an old history show about Satan, the dark god, which informs us is prominent in many major religions throughout history. And as we hear the kid in the background screaming through his gag, Ray grabs a big ass handsaw, which already has blood on it, and heads back into the bathroom to finish the job. This is such a dark scene. It is very well put together. It is very creepy. Honestly, one of my favorite scenes in the film. And I also really enjoy the little montage after this scene of Ray cleaning up all the blood in the bathroom while Jesse is like painting the dead kid.
Dude, the montage of him killing this kid, and you don't actually see him sawing the kid up, but you see blood splatter all over this bathtub, and we get these really quick shots of Jesse painting on the canvas with this red paint to match this kid's blood, and you even see him like mixing up blues and purples or blue into red to make that blood color. Anybody who's ever painted knows you have to add a little bit of blue. Can't ever get the color right with red. But it is one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie. The editing in this is a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, you see like he's smearing this red paint with this brush on this canvas, and then we see Rhea smearing the blood in the bathtub with a mop.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's so good.
it's literally it's back and forth between Jesse painting and the whole murder and the cleanup afterwards. And it's probably this, 5-hour period that it's a 10-second montage, but it's amazingly put together.
So after Jesse finishes painting for the night, he again snaps out of it, staring in total disbelief at what he has created, which has started to become this big ass mural of these dead, tormented kids engulfed in flames. When suddenly Astrid walks in and is shocked by what she is looking at, which is amplified by 10 when she spots the image of Zoe in the painting screaming in pain.
Yeah, this would freak me out.
Definitely.
Like, even as Jesse, I don't know if I could continue on with this to completely black out and paint your daughter in this fucked up ass scene. It's important too for people who haven't seen this. The original painting was butterflies. This was a commission that he was set to do for a bank that is some of the little bit of money that he's actually bringing into the family. And we can tell in this part of the movie, they're very financially stressed. So for him to destroy that and paint over it goes to show you like how that selling your soul to the devil thing.
He's not in control.
Throwing everything else away.
Because it's not him in those moments. So Astrid immediately asks him to destroy this fucking painting, but despite how much he agrees with her, he tells her that he can't because it is not finished yet. She obviously doesn't understand what is going on with him, prompting Jesse to try and explain, saying he feels like these children are inside of him, begging and screaming to be let out, and he has no idea why. All I could picture in this scene is like Freddy ripping his sweater off and revealing all the faces of the murdered kids, like, you're all my children now. So,
that would have been a different turn.
Yeah, you mentioned him briefly earlier, but I want to talk a little bit about the actual artist who painted this. So the production originally hired a different artist to do the work, but according to Sean Byrne, the paintings just felt kind of basic and they lacked that true darkness that the film was going for. This led to the production to hire another artist named Stephen Kastner, who would go on to create the actual canvases that we see in the film. Kasner is best known for album cover artwork for extreme metal bands, including Sun O, who contributed to the film's soundtrack. But the big revelation was that Kasner was a practicing Satanist with what he described as a line of communication to several famous serial killers. And in order to help prepare Ethan Embry for this role, he actually gave him a copy of the Satanic Bible. Byrne also said that he believed Kastner was a high-ranking member of the Satanic Church, holding a rank of like bishop. And while he worked on the paintings, he would actually text Byron weird messages like, "I can feel him getting closer and it's almost time." That's wild. And unfortunately, on Christmas Day of all days in 2019, Kastner passed away from an unknown cause after battling extreme pain and depression.
So I actually looked into Stephen Kastner a lot in the research for this because I found it extremely interesting, him being like a high priest in the Church of Satan. So I think that he told the production this to fuck with them
Oh, okay.
because there is actually no, like I even dug
There's
into
no official, yeah.
multiple AIs to look into. Apparently, he had no religious beliefs, and definitely no ties to like serial killers or anything like that. So essentially, them what they said in these interviews was the only on record of him ever talking about religion or the Church of Satan. So either this was like major news that's never ever been talked about. He'd been in many interviews, art magazines and stuff. Either this was like groundbreaking or he was fucking with them. And I think whenever I heard the part about the text message after I dug deep and watched the special features again, and he was, like, telling him, like, I feel him, I think he's close. I think he was legitimately fucking with them.
He could have been because I looked into him as well and I didn't spend a massive amount of time. I probably spent 20, 30 minutes, but only thing I could find was his
Yeah,
artwork.
I looked for, like, an hour trying to find connections to the actual Church of Satan. I even looked to see if he was part of the Satanic Temple,
Oh,
and
yeah.
maybe they confused it because for those who don't know, the Satanic Temple isn't actually Satanist.
They're like
It is
atheists, yeah.
it is very much a
Political movement.
separation of church and state political movement,
Yeah.
and, maybe they didn't know that and were confused, but I couldn't even find any ties with that with Stephen Kastner. So either, like, him being a high-ranking bishop never was reported ever in any magazines or talked about, or he was fucking with them. I think there's a chance he may have been fucking with them,
Possibly.
which I find actually hilarious.
So later that night, we see Jesse having a nightmare about Zoe and the other children burning in flames when he suddenly wakes up and makes a beeline straight for the painting. And as he enters the studio, he grabs a box cutter and goes to destroy it, but he just can't bring himself to do it after suddenly hearing loud chanting in another language mixed with the scream of kids. And right after this happens, we see Ray put the dead child in a suitcase, drive out to the middle of nowhere, and dig a grave. And once he is finished, he goes to place the suitcase in the hole, where we then see 3 other suitcases, telling us that Ray has been busy and this is not the first child he has murdered, which goes right along with the next scene depicting a still mostly undressed Jesse working on the paintings, where we now see he has added a demonic creature in the center with 3 faces and a rib cage encasing a dead little girl with butterfly wings, which are obviously the 4 dead kids we just saw in the suitcases. And after Jesse's failed attempt at destroying the painting, he ended up working on it all throughout the night.
Man, I gotta say, Stephen Kastner, the artist we were just talking about, his depiction of Satan here is really good.
It's really creepy.
Yeah, this painting is
All the
mega.
eyes, man.
Yeah, it's mega creepy, and for a character who has been painted and imagined so many different times, to be able to have something that's original and super scary and still look at it and be like, that is 100% a demonic creature. I thought he did an amazing job.
So while Jesse is out in the studio, things get a whole lot worse in the house as we then see Ray, who just finished burying the dead kids, sneak into Zoe's room and climb in bed with her. He then wakes her by telling her that she is special, but right when she tries to scream, he subdues her, begging her to be quiet because he doesn't want to kill her. This would be fucking horrifying to wake up to, especially as a teenage girl.
Dude, I think that this is one of the scariest scenes in the whole movie.
Cause he lays there and he just stares at her for like 30 seconds.
Yeah, him getting in the bed, like getting in a girl, like a 12-year-old girl's bed, like that is such a vulnerable place, such a sacred place for a teenager, especially a girl like that. That is her bed, and for a grown ass man that she doesn't know to be in it with her, and she doesn't know. Like that's the scariest part is when she's sleeping and he's like whispering and talking to her. It's so fucking creepy. The cinematography set up, like, right over the bed. I thought everything about this scene was set up great, and it's super fucking scary.
Yeah, and he just finished burying these suitcases full of dead kids. And I do love, I won't say what it is, but there's an event that happens in this movie that makes this scene make way more sense.
Mm.
So Zoe does not go along with this, eventually managing to scream and fight enough to wake up Astrid, who quickly comes running in to save her, but Ray manages to escape the room, quickly bolting down the stairs, and right as he is running through the front door, he slams into Jesse, causing them both to fall to the floor, where Ray then kicks Jesse hard in the face, briefly disorienting him, to which Ray then escapes to his car and almost runs over Jesse. After the altercation, they call the cops, who then recommend the Hellmans go stay at a hotel for a few days in order to give them enough time to run the prints and look for Ray. The officer then tells them that she will be parked right out front for the remainder of the night until the family can pack up and leave in the morning. Once that is settled, Astrid puts a now traumatized Zoe in their bed, while a very angry Jesse stares out of the window holding a baseball bat in case Ray comes back. And as he gazes into the dark field that surrounds his home, he spots a creature walking through the grass, which is soon revealed to be Black Phillip, the all-black goat that represents Satan himself, which then turns and looks Jesse right in the eyes, which leads to another nightmare involving Ray kidnapping Zoe. Fun fact about the goat, so apparently they wanted to use a real black goat for this scene, but quickly found out that that would be way more difficult than they originally thought. So they ended up searching the whole entire state of Texas and still wasn't able to find one single black goat in the whole fucking state, which was shocking to everyone involved. And after exhausting their search, they settled on getting a sheep and spray painting in black, which is what you see in the film.
Yeah, and then they said they had a whole problem with having to get, like, safe paint to paint it because they couldn't harm the animal, obviously. Yeah, this was like Black Phillip's, like, stunt double.
Well, what's funny about this too is you remember Black Phillip on the set of The Witch was extremely difficult.
Was the devil.
He was the devil. And they talk about this fucking goat being a giant pain in the ass trying to work with.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We gotta jump back into The Witch. We gotta do a revisit on that movie because
Love that movie.
I know there's some great information that we didn't have at the time on that, but yeah, the Black Phillip stunt double showing up in this, I thought was fantastic.
Is he blackface?
I guess technically this is the Clintons
Yeah.
of sheep. This also Jesse, when his daughter wakes up with Ray in her bed and, the mom's in there, Jesse's obviously in his studio, doing his manic painting. This is the second major example of him failing to be there for his daughter.
Big time.
So that is a huge, huge plot point of this movie. So keep that in the back of your mind.
So the next morning, Zoe is way too freaked out to stay home and decides that she wants to go to school. So Jesse then drops her off, and we can see this whole thing is drastically affecting him emotionally because he is starting to feel like a failure at being a father and husband. And just when he is almost at his lowest, he gets a phone call that will force him to make a choice. Meet with Leonard, the owner of the art gallery, and possibly be late picking Zoe up again, or pass on the meeting and miss this big opportunity. Jesse thinks for a moment and decides to roll the dice and meet with Leonard, hoping he can still get to the school on time. Later on, we see Leonard arrive at the studio where he gets a good look at the giant dead kid mural thing that Jesse's been working on, and he pretty quickly decides that he likes it, calling Jesse's new style wonderfully disturbing. Jesse then attempts to end the meeting, informing the man that he has to leave to pick up his daughter, but Leonard leaves Jesse with something to think about, as he then says, "As they say, nothing of true worth comes without sacrifice." I think that there's so much more story with Leonard in this place, because it's like he knows.
Yeah. So for one, going back to Jesse feeling like a failure as a dad because of the time he spent on his work, I think that's important to go back to Sean when he was writing this, with just having kids and all the time he was spending trying to make it and get this movie made and how that affected the script.
He leaves the country.
Yeah, yeah, and he said that was a big part of a lot of the script changes. So I think that's one of the examples we can see directly in the movie, but yeah, I think that you literally hit the nail on the head. I would find it extremely weird that this guy wanted me to be late to pick up my daughter from school.
And demanded this
Um,
meeting take place
Yeah,
right now.
and then even after, he's like, "No, like, I gotta be there to pick up my daughter." The guy still he holds up a toast, and it's super creepy. He's like, "Well, here's a toast to sacrifices," saying, like, "You're gonna sacrifice being there for your daughter." But there's much deeper meaning behind him saying that,
And there's a
sacrifices.
major event about
Yeah.
to happen too.
Yeah, considering the dark nature of the art in his gallery, the name of the gallery, him causing him to be late, and then what we're about to get into about what he causes, I think that he may be the demon himself.
I can see that. I think he's more of a guy who helps serve. He's just another he's just another person that Satan is using. This is a guy who, like, kind of like your standard Satanist. I look at him like the fucking people in Rosemary's Baby.
Well, that could be right. I think it would be really cool if he was Belial himself in taking a human form. But you could be right. It could be another example of he kinda worships Belial, and he essentially sold his soul. He gets all these great things, this rich life. He's obviously mega rich. He's got this super successful art gallery, and in return for all his riches, he, gives the devil his candy.
Yeah, he's helping these plans move
But
forward.
but he seems to have knowledge that a person just helping would not. He has a foresight and a knowledge that, let's say Ray in this movie, he is also a vessel that is doing things for Belial. He doesn't have special foresight. He can't see things before they happen. And this guy clearly knows what is about to happen if Jesse's late at this school.
Yeah, yeah, and I think part
And
of that
he
is
also, what's about to happen to Jesse's tire also is caused by a unforeseen force that Ray would not, and we can't say for sure it's this art gallery owner, but I think that he may be Belial in human form.
Yeah, I think he's more along like that the whole cult, that we see in Rosemary's Baby. These really rich, high up people, they have some kind of communication with the devil. The devil is saying, "This is my plan. This is what I'm going to do. I need you to do this, and I need you to do this." And I think that he has already been filled in on what's happening that day, and his part is to try to keep Jesse there as long as possible.
He may be a prophet. He may be a prophet for Belial. He may be getting this
Yeah,
information.
that's what I think is going on here. Ray is he's kind of I think he's more of a ground soldier, and this other guy's more like a general, right?
Yeah, this is, though, another great example of if you're just watching this movie, not really paying attention to it, something like this would never stick out to you. The name of the art gallery, this guy's intentions, how he purposely is obviously aware that there's other things going on. He may just, if you're just watching this movie, he seems like a shitty rich art
Yeah.
gallery owner who's more concerned about his art gallery than this guy being there to pick up his daughter. But when you really pay attention, it shows a whole 'nother backstory, and I love movies that you don't have to be spoon-fed.
Yeah. So we then cut to Jesse speeding down the road trying to get to the school on time when he suddenly has a blowout which sends the car skidding off the road. A now very panicked Jesse then attempts to make a phone call, but when the other end answers, all he hears is the demonic voice speaking to him. This makes him realize something bad is about to happen to his daughter, prompting him to leave the car and take off running towards the school. But when he arrives, he finds the school empty and Zoe nowhere to be found. We then suddenly cut to a shot of her laying unconscious on the floor with a big gash on her head and duct tape over her mouth. And as she wakes up, she discovers Ray standing over her, obsessively staring. And just in case she wasn't freaked out enough, Ray then wipes some blood off of her forehead and puts it to his lips, tasting it. He then smiles, looks down at her, and says, "He's right. You are the sweetest candy of them all," which is extremely disturbing.
Ugh.
So Ray then regretfully informs her that he has to kill her now. As she then begins to panic, he leaves the room in order to get his saw and put on his garbage bag shirt, which gives her enough time to calm down and try to break free of the duct tape holding her arms and legs together. One thing I noticed on my second watch this week was how, as the movie progresses, you can actually see Ray's clothes get more worn and dirty, which is this cool little detail because it really shows how fucked up this guy is. Like, all he's focused on is killing these fucking kids for this demon. And at this point in the movie, he's killed and buried 4 different children in the same clothes. And if you pay close attention, you can see little bits of stuff on his tracksuit that tells us kind of he's been up to something. And while I was researching the movie, I came across some info on the red tracksuit that he wears in the movie. So the main color is red, which in the Bible is closely associated with the sin of man. The white stripe down the sleeve and pants represents the innocent child still inside Ray's possessed body. And also, we see Ray closely associated with the color red throughout the whole film, not just with the clothing, but with other objects. Specifically, the shot of him through the stained glass door at the Hellman's house, the flying V guitar, the gas can, and even the lighter he uses to set the fire. All red.
That's interesting. So the guy who plays Ray actually does this thing with his eye, where one of his eyes will move and the other one does not. This is something he's able to do. And as we see him become more possessed, they show that it becomes more pronounced. That movement in his eye, whereas we don't see it as much in the beginning of the movie as by this point in the movie, he's full on possessed. They actually showcase it a lot more. So it's almost as if his eyes are actually changing as he becomes more in the grips of this demon.
So we then see Zoe manage to get the duct tape loose, and right as Ray walks into the bathroom to kill her, he spots her climbing out the window. He then tries to pull her back in, but only manages to pull her shoe off, falling to the floor as Zoe successfully escapes and makes her way to the police station. We then see Jesse, Astrid, and Zoe reunited at the station, but Zoe digs into her father when she reminds him that he promised on her grave he would never be late again. An older police officer then informs the upset father that Zoe is actually really lucky because it is then revealed that Ray has been doing this since he was 12 years old, attacking a younger girl by hitting her in the head with a rock and attempting to bury her, which is how he ended up in the state-run mental hospital for 20 years. And when he was originally arrested, he tried to tell the police about the demonic voice who told him to do it, which is why his mother freaked out when he mentions the voice again at the beginning of the movie. The cop then mentions all this, and Jesse makes a connection because of all the shit that he's been dealing with when it comes to this demonic voice and these screams of tormented children in his head, which leads him to ask the cop for more details. The officer then reads Ray's statement where he says, "I have to feed him children because children are his candy." And the him that he's referring to is none other than Satan himself, which hits Jesse like a ton of bricks. After the meeting, the officer then informs the family that the department has decided it's best to place the family under witness protection until Ray is found. They then send 2 officers with the family back to the house in order to collect their things, and while they are packing, we then see Jesse make his way out to the studio where he stands face to face with the painting. But unlike before, Jesse doesn't let it suck him in, as we then see him grab a box cutter and slash it over and over again, making it clear that he chooses his family over anything Satan can offer.
Dude, hearing that this guy killed a 9-year-old when he was 12, and the state sent him to a mental institution, and, he got released, and now his parents are dead. He obviously killed them in the movie, but what makes this horrifying is that this really happens. And what happens when somebody as a child, and it happens very commonly, more than what people would think, commit a crime like this, get sent to a mental institution, and then get out. What happens when their caretakers die? When their parents die?
They're on their own.
Now you have like a 40, 50-year-old man with extreme mental issues that the state's not looking at. Their parents are gone. They no longer have anybody there, and they have these really, really fucked up thoughts.
Yeah.
And this happens all the time in real life, and that's what's horrifying.
Yeah, the only thing that you can hope is that they kind of minorly fuck up and end up back on the radar or
Yeah.
back to the institution, but
Yeah, 'cause you gotta think, like, most of the cops, when somebody like this is, say, in his case, 12 years old and murders a 9-year-old girl, most of those cops are retired now, unfortunately, so, they would have no idea.
yeah. Yeah, they wouldn't. So, while he is out in the studio destroying the mural, Ray slams his car into the 2 officers where he then kills them by bashing their brains in with the rock and taking a gun. A now scared Astrid and Zoe are told to go hide somewhere while Jesse attempts to ambush Ray when he walks to the doorway. Both men panic during the confrontation, which leads to Ray shooting Jesse in the hallway, where he then starts looking for Zoe, who he finds hiding in the hall closet with her mom. And after breaking into the door, he shoots Astrid and drags Zoe out of the house kicking and screaming. That shot where they just like linger on the, seemingly dead parents, that was good. That was good. A lot about this initial part where he shows up is really good because like another thing is like when Jesse goes to hit him with the bat and both of them kind of freak out and
Dude,
that's very realistic.
so realistic,
And
like,
then how quick somebody can literally kill your family and just that fast after getting inside a house, that is also extremely realistic.
Yeah, the reaction when he comes through the door, when he just starts shooting and shoots Jesse, that acting was amazing on the part, especially the guy who played Ray. Like, showing this childlike person or demon who's never shot a gun, and he's startled when he comes to the door and he just starts shooting. And even though he's not good with shooting, he still manages to shoot Jesse. Also, the shot of him walking up through the red panes of glass that is across, that is actually a very that symbolic lot of symbolism in that pane of glass, and it's shown throughout the movie. The cinematography does a really good job, and I think it's red for when you were explaining the tracksuit, the color red and what it symbolizes. I think that goes into what this red cross that's on the front door.
Yeah, it's the sin of man, which is
Yeah,
the whole thing about the cross is, somebody literally was put on that cross for like
yeah.
all the men and women and ever, the sins.
Yeah, so the fact that they use that symbolism and show this cross throughout the movie, and then the very end coming up on this confrontation, he's actually right before he's shot at, he's looking at Ray through this red pane of glass, walk up the stairs. Thought that looked awesome. And then the final thing is the actress that plays Zoe. She sells this scene. Her breakdown and freak out when this is happening is so real. Like the fear in her eyes and when she's freaking out and her mom is trying to calm her down is just, it makes the scene so real.
Yeah, this is a this is a good scene all the way around.
There's also one thing I wanted to point out. Never figured out what it was, but throughout this whole entire final scene, before he drags her upstairs, the door is open, and you can see in the background, there is like this, uh, I want to say it almost looks like a cloud. It is like this transparent figure that we can see in the doorway pacing back and forth outside. And I never found any explanation on what it was, but I even rewound it and watched it in 4K on the big screen TV, and you can clearly see this transparent cloud-like figure literally just pacing, going back and forth outside the door.
No, I didn't even
It's
catch that.
super creepy. It's almost like the spirit of the demon himself
Could be.
waiting outside for this kid.
Definitely could be. So it is then revealed that Astrid isn't dead, just badly wounded, when suddenly Ray, still dragging Zoe around, returns to the house with a can of gas. When he then attempts to shoot Astrid in the head, killing her for good, but he discovers that the gun is empty, which forces him to throw it down and proceed to pour gas all over the place. Once he makes his way upstairs, he uses a lighter to set the house on fire, revealing that he plans on killing Zoe and himself tonight as well. But just when it looks like all hope is lost, Jesse manages to wake up where he drags Astrid outside and begins to make his way up a ladder in order to get to his daughter's bedroom. We then cut to Zoe's room where we see her and Ray laying on the bed surrounded by flames, and Zoe starts to scream at the top of her lungs. We finally see that this is the same image that Jesse kept having the nightmares about. This is, as essentially he was having nightmares about this event that was always going to happen. Once he makes it inside, him and Ray begin to fight, where Ray manages to subdue Jesse for a moment, giving him just enough time to go after Zoe again. And as he approaches the bed, he quickly catches on fire, essentially melting his face, where we then see the true form of the demonic force inside of him. The glowing eyes looked awesome.
Yeah.
I thought this looked super cool. But right before he gets to the girl, he is attacked from behind with a massive blow from the Flying V guitar as he then falls to the floor, and we see Jesse, with all of his might, beat what's left of Ray to death, splattering his blood all over Jesse's face and chest. This imagery is actually done to show that Jesse is slaying the beast with an axe, which
Yeah.
is super cool.
I think the blood covering him too would also protect him from being burned in the fire.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
But I thought it was super symbolic that he kills Ray off with the very Flying V guitar that Ray, if you remember, Ray was using this guitar in the beginning of the movie to silence the demonic voices.
To fight back,
He
yeah.
was protecting himself. And then whenever he finally loses control, he gives this guitar to Zoe, which ultimately allows her dad to use it to stop him. It's very interesting. And remember, her dad did not want her to keep it. And the dead kid speaking to him through the paintings is what caused him to be late, forcing him to allow her to keep this guitar.
Yeah.
It was those kids speaking to him, which you're about to get to, through the paintings, which is what ended up allowing her to have the guitar in her room anyway. So it all really ties together like extremely well that Ray was using this guitar to protect himself, and then he gave it to her, which is essentially what protected her.
Mhm.
Her dad was able to use to kill him.
Yep. So Jesse then delivers blow after blow until the guitar finally breaks, where he then takes the shattered neck of the guitar and stabs it into Ray's dead body, making sure he is fully dead. And once he is finished, Zoe then looks at her blood-soaked father's face in disbelief when suddenly the gas can explodes, covering the room in flames. Jesse then begs his scared daughter to make her way towards him, but the raging fire is so crazy she is essentially frozen in fear, yelling back to him that she just can't do it. Jesse then yells for her to please trust him, and after thinking about it for a moment, Zoe finally builds up the courage where she then runs and jumps through the flames and into her father's arms. So this scene where he says to trust him and she jumps through the fire, this is meant to represent the rekindling of her trust with her father after all of these previous failures. And another thing is like fire is known as like it purifies things. So basically this is their relationship going back to the way it was. It's kind of cleansed.
Yeah. I thought it was extremely poetic that she had to put all her trust back in her dad to save her life after throughout this movie he has failed her time and time again because of this demon, and to save herself from dying at the hands of this demon she has to put all of her trust and faith back in her dad, and he is there for her.
Yep. So after that, the two then climb out of the window and down the ladder where Zoe falls into her mother's arms when suddenly Jesse has a vision. Astrid and Zoe stand there confused as Jesse then slowly limps off towards the side of the house, where he then drops to his knees and quickly starts moving away the dirt, where it is then revealed that Ray had been burying the dead kids right next to the house, which is why Jesse could feel these kids screaming to be freed when he was painting. And right after he uncovers the suitcases, a bright light illuminates the area from above, causing Jesse to look to the sky where he begins to cry, realizing that there are forces greater than him in the world on both sides that can't be explained. And that is the end of The Devil's Candy. So, what I mentioned it earlier that this would make more sense. Remember, we see Ray bury the kid, and then the very next scene, he is in Zoe's bedroom.
Yeah, 'cause
Well,
it's right
he's
there.
burying the fucking kid right by their house, like on
Yeah.
the side of their house, which makes sense of how he was able to go from there to there that fast.
Yeah, that's a good point. I also wanna point out that if Ray, when he finally loses control, he gives Zoe the guitar. So in Ray's head, the only thing that he has ever been able to protect himself against the demon voices that he hears is this red guitar. So in his childlike mind, the only thing that is able to defeat this demon is this guitar.
Yeah, it's like the
That
sword that comes out of the fucking rock or
Yeah,
whatever.
it's what he has always used to protect himself against these voices. And when he finally loses control, he no longer has need for the guitar. He gives it to Zoe. Remember, at this point, the demon wants Zoe, but he's like, you're special. I don't want to give him you. There's something special
He
about
actually
you.
he actually says he
Yeah.
convinces him to go after the blonde-haired kid next
Yeah.
instead of her.
Yeah, so he gives gives her the only defense against the demon that he has, as if to hopefully hope that she is able to defeat the demon, which her dad does. He uses this guitar. It's like the only thing that can truly defeat this demon in Ray's mind. So in that aspect, is Ray a victim in this movie as well?
He is. Um,
And that was how Sean framed the character to get the guy who plays Ray to take the role in the first place.
and you have to really look at the details to see that in this movie, especially when you know that this started when he was like 12. So he is
Yeah.
a child, and kind of probably a lot harder for a child to fight off, a possession anyway. But this thing got to him when he was a kid, and it's kind of too late for him at this point.
Well, he's also been in this psychiatric unit. They may have used medications to keep him from hearing these voices, but I would imagine at some point this I think they say the date of the guitar in the movie, but at some point his parents buy him this guitar that he uses, and he obviously plays when he's in the psychiatric unit, but he uses this when he gets out to try to silence the voices.
So
It's the only thing that he has to silence the voices, and I just thought that that was super, super symbolic that he, as he's losing control, gives this to Zoe for Zoe to protect herself.
So they don't necessarily mention in the movie when he gets the guitar, but Sean Byron and the actor who plays Ray, they actually got together to create a backstory to help the actor. And what they figured out was like Ray was one of those kids where his dad kind of kept trying different things to connect with him and to have some kind of relationship with him. And after like a ton of failed things that normal boys would do, it was the guitar that really caught Ray's attention as a child, and that's essentially where the guitar comes from.
And you wonder if he associated with the guitar because it was the one thing that was stopping the
Could have been.
voices in his head as a child.
Yeah, could have been. All right, so ratings and kill count. We actually have a total of 9 kills. A lot of them are off screen. We have Ray's mom, who falls down the stairs, Ray's dad, who dies off screen, the blonde haired child that was hit with a rock and eventually cut up with a saw. You have kid 2, 3, and 4, all died off screen at the hands of Ray. Number 7 is the female cop who was hit by a car and had her head bashed in with the rock. We also had the male cop who was hit by the car and bashed in the head with a rock. And finally, number 9 is Ray Smile himself, who was hit in the head with the guitar and burned to death. So a lot of kills, but we just don't really see a lot of them. But that's fine. This isn't a movie with like a lot of gore or anything. Favorite kill?
I actually didn't do a favorite kill because a lot of the kills took place off screen, but off the top of my head, definitely Ray being the number one. The symbolicness of the way he dies, the blood splatter, all of that's really awesome. And number 2 would be the blonde-haired kid because his death scene is that montage, which is one of my favorite parts of the entire movie, is flashing between his blood splatter in the tub and the cleanup of it, and then the painting, Jesse painting this kid essentially, his soul in this painting.
Yeah, I went with Ray. It's an awesome showdown. They do a fight that's like surrounded by fire. Ray turns into a demon at one point, but Jesse beating him to death with the guitar. And then like the whole time that's happening, there's a like badass distorted guitar score in that scene. Fantastic scene. So that's my number 1. And my number 2 is also the blonde-haired kid. We don't see the initial kill, but it is very chilling, very impactful. All right, rating.
I gave this movie a 4.3. I think the cinematography is absolutely one of the shining stars of this. The color palette is amazing. The way that he lights things in such a dark movie is fucking awesome. The acting, Zoe and Jesse's chemistry, definitely extremely important. It makes or breaks this movie, along with Ray as the villain or victim, however you want to see that. But he plays his part amazing. The production design. The house is almost a character in itself, especially with the cross and the window. And then also another part of the production design is the art and getting a real artist to come in and do this, and it just adds such a, unique twist, or unique detail to the movie that really fitting. I think this movie is absolutely horrifying as a parent because, like, the scenes where he breaks in and he's in Zoe's bed, like, this shit happens in real life, and it literally is there's parts of this movie that builds such tension and is just absolutely like, when he takes her to the hotel and has she wakes up in the bathroom floor, like, that is a gut-wrenching scene, and like I said before, a movie that makes you really feel sick to your stomach is doing its job. I thought Ray was scary as fuck 'cause we've got a great, great villain in this. Overall, as a possession movie, I love a very unique possession movie. I hate the basic,
Yeah.
cookie cutter, everything we've gotten since, 2007 on. And this one was very unique. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I gave the movie 4 stars. I appreciate the unique take on the possession story. Those are normally very cut and dry, as you were just saying. I love his idea of showing that a more alternative family isn't like, any different than your standard, regular conservative family. The imagery is fantastic throughout the film. I really think you don't absorb it all with just like 1 or 2 watches. There's a lot. I think you could really get a lot out of this movie with like 2 or 3 watches. The acting is pretty good from most of the cast. Ethan Embry does a fantastic job acting with a lot of facial expressions. We see a lot of his emotion on his face throughout the movie. But my 2 favorite things about it is the cinematography and the score, which are both phenomenal. I think that's what truly makes this movie, at least for me. I was actually looking at the art cards that came with that box set, and when I rewatched the movie, I noticed there are a ton of scenes that could have been those art cards. It's a beautiful film. Like, there's a scene where he's, like, putting on his respirator, and it's, like, super close up, and then he's, like, literally spray painting, um,
Canvas?
a canvas. Like, that's a good scene. Like, when I was doing the artwork, I was actually for this episode, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to use, and I ended up actually using one of the art cards from the box set as the artwork for this. But yeah, a lot of good looking scenes. My only negatives is, like, I wish it was, maybe a tad bit longer. I think it's only like an hour and 20 minutes. I just feel like there are some details that are missing from the story. I don't really know what it is, but in some ways, the story just didn't feel fully fulfilled to me. I really think that they should have included something with that fucking art dealer guy. Like, it's like it almost came full circle.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's what I would thought was really curious about whatever you could see outside the doorway during this
Yeah,
final confrontation.
stuff like that. Like, I feel like there's a little bit more substance left in the story that is missing. But other than that, man, like, that's my only complaint. I still really enjoyed the movie. I still think that it's a good story. It's a unique take on something that's been done a million times. But yeah, 4 stars for me. Good movie. If you can see this movie on 4K or at least on physical media, because when I actually wrote the episode, like the plot, I used the streaming version, and with so many like blacks in there, it gets it. You know what streaming does? Like, you can
Yeah,
see the little like fucking squares, the
yeah.
digital looking shit.
It also muddies things
It
out
does.
with dark colors.
When I originally watched it this week, I watched it on the 4K. It's so much better looking. Yeah, and
Yeah,
the sound is
it's
actually good too. It's
it,
better in
it
the physical version.
yeah, it is sound wise. That's one I did miss when I was doing my rating. The score is fantastic and very unique to be able to come in and do a score and use a lot of really distorted
Yeah.
guitars and to be able to do that and do them at the right moments, I thought that the score was great. Like, you have the music and you have the soundtrack, but to go in and actually compose a score around distorted guitars to match that heavy metal feel of the movie, I thought was genius.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I think it's overlooked, and it's one of my favorite parts of the movie. All right, yeah, that's our thoughts on The Devil's Candy. Once again, we thank you guys for listening. Please give us a follow or like if you enjoy the show. Check out the website, check out the socials, tell a friend, a family member, or your favorite metalhead about the show, and we hope to see you next time.